30 years ago, filmmaker Steven Spielberg created the Shoah Foundation shortly after his movie Schindler's List had brought the Holocaust to the big screens. He wanted to preserve the testimonies of genocide survivors. To this date, the Shoah Foundation has recorded more than 56,000 testimonies. DW was able to speak to its executive director, Robert Williams, at a time when anti-Semitism is on the rise globally. Robert Williams, Executive Director of the USC Shoah Foundation. Welcome to DW. You came here to Berlin from the United States, where we have seen a lot of protests at US campuses lately in the past weeks. The protesters, though, the students, say that there is not enough pressure on Israel to end the war that has already killed more than 30,000 Palestinians in Gaza. And this is why they asked their universities to divest from Israeli companies and companies with connections to Israel or to the military. Are these not legitimate demands, in your opinion?
Asking for cessation of civilian deaths in a military conflict is always a concern. I think there is a lack of critical thinking at play, in part. The number of civilian deaths, as reported by the Hamas-run Gaza Health Ministry, has not shifted significantly over the past couple of months. The fact that the information is coming to us from a known terror organization automatically makes some of those numbers suspect. We certainly know that civilians have died, and that's tragic. But in terms of the scale of civilian deaths by percentage, it's lower than any other more recent case of urban warfare, including some of the US military's incursions into Afghanistan and Iraq. The notion that US universities are somehow actively complicit in this at a leading level is also very suspicious. The idea of boycott as a form of protest has a long lineage, but to single out Israel and call for a complete boycott and divestment of Israeli goods and Israeli products, at the same time you have so many other military conflicts, so many other human rights abuses happening in other parts of the world where nobody talks about boycott or divestment, is suspicious. That is in part why we're concerned about rising anti-Semitism.
We have seen a rise in anti-Semitism since October 7th, but already before in Europe, in the US, and elsewhere.
Yes.
How concerned, how alarmed maybe are you?
I'm extremely concerned and beyond alarmed. In countries that have taken anti-Semitism very seriously, like the Federal Republic of Germany, it's still frightening to see that there has been more than an 85% increase in anti-Semitic incidents over the course of the last 10 years. Now, I think the reason we know that is because Germany has taken the issue so seriously and monitors it. In countries that take it less seriously than Germany, elsewhere in the EU, we've seen rises of more than 100%. And it's not particularly to Eastern Europe or Northern Europe. This is something that's found across the continent.
How concerned are you about the rise of far-right parties in Europe, also in Germany?
And North America.
Yes, everywhere in the world.
It's a challenge that all of our countries have. The best way to counter it is to try to shore up our liberal democratic values. The same is true of the United States. We have seen the rise of a form of populist politics that was never fully absent from the American political scene, but also not something that's been accepted on such a broad scale over the last few years. This is a real danger. It's a danger for the sake of fighting anti-Semitism as well, because what we've seen in the case of some of these far-right parties is a tendency to project themselves as, at the very least, pro-Israel, if not pro-Jewish. And why are they doing this? They're not doing it out of a love for the Jewish people. More often than not, they're doing it in order to excuse other policies they have that are biased against other groups, including Muslim communities that are coming in. All this does is separate communities, which is going to lead to more tension. It's the responsibility of good politicians, of which there are too few, to try to reunite our communities rather than pull them apart.